Greetings, gentle observer, and welcome. I am RDF, and within this video I will show how the world now stands on the very brink of an unprecedented energy crisis. An energy crisis that will transform the very nature, the very structure of our society beyond all recognition. The source of this energy crisis lies with the one energy resource that our world now totally depends upon, that being oil. The COVID pandemic has, of course, reduced the demand for oil, and so this video may seem out of sync, as it were, as there is oil aplenty at this moment in time. However, the pandemic has in truth exacerbated the supply situation, for oil producers are not now investing in new oil infrastructure, meaning that the crisis, when it comes, will be so much quicker to manifest itself and so much more severe in its unfolding. In order to understand the magnitude of the danger we now face, it is vital to understand two very important points regarding oil. Points that, although of paramount significance, I have never heard mentioned by any other observer. The first of these highly significant points is the reality that all other ways of producing energy depend upon oil in order to function. Looking at coal production, for example, we see that when coal was first mined in quantity, coal itself was the energy source used in its extraction. For mine pumping engines and lifting equipment, for example, were all powered by coal. The coal was then transported even by coal-powered locomotives. Today, however, oil has taken over the job originally done by coal, meaning that coal production today is no longer possible without oil. Likewise, the extraction of natural gas would not be possible without oil-powered machinery. As to nuclear, we see that uranium ore, for example, has to be prospected for, mined and refined using oil energy, and so nuclear power once again would not be possible without oil. Moreover, oil is also used in the construction of power stations, irrespective as to their energy source, as is clear when looking at the Hinkley Point power station building site, where innumerable oil-powered lorries, cranes, earth movers, etc. can be seen working. Excuse me. So-called renewables, such as wind turbines and solar panels, are equally totally reliant upon oil for their manufacture, construction and maintenance. Indeed, so useless are wind turbines that all they accomplish in the long term is to waste valuable oil and so bring the crisis ever closer. Because of their dependency upon oil, the truth of the situation is that all sources of energy, be they fossil fuels, nuclear power or so-called renewables, are not true alternatives to oil at all, but rather they are derivatives of oil, for without oil they could not exist. This being so, then, the suggestion, as promoted by the climate alarmists, that oil should be phased out is pure and utter nonsense, for the end of oil will herald the end of all forms of energy production and not just oil itself. And indeed, the end of oil will herald the end of our very civilization. The second point of significance may take a little more explaining, as it is one of abstract perception. It has taken us some 200 years to use 2 trillion barrels of oil, some 50% of all that available to us. However, when oil was first used, it was used only by a very few people, mainly as a machine, machine lubricant or as a lamp oil. Today, however, oil is used by the vast majority of people on the planet, meaning that at current rates of consumption, the world will run out of oil not in 200 years, but rather in just 20 to 25 years, well within your lifetime, gentle observer, and most certainly within the lifetime of your children and grandchildren. However, and of the utmost significance, we shall never witness the end of oil. For long before that happens, our civilization will be no more. For running out of oil is not the problem. The real danger comes from running short of oil. Many observers make the mistake of thinking of worldwide oil reserves in the same way as they think of the fuel in their car. For they see that if their car's tank is full, the car runs just fine. Indeed, the car runs fine when the tank is half empty. And indeed, the car runs fine right up to the point where the last drop of fuel is exhausted and the car comes to a halt. Still thinking along automotive lines, these observers further reason that the world, as with their car, will run just as it does today, right up to the point when the last drop of oil is extracted, and then, and only then, will the world come to a halt. In order to explain the fallacy of this mindset, a far better understanding of worldwide oil reserves comes from comparing these not to the fuel in a car's fuel tank, but rather to the water contained within the human body. In oversimplified terms then, the human body consists of some 70% water. Therefore, the body of a 100 kilo man will contain some 70 kilos or 70 litres of water. However, and in order to die from dehydration, the man does not have to lose 70 litres of water, but only some 10% of this amount. This being so, when lying dead on the ground from dehydration, the man's body will still contain some 63 litres of water. Dying from dehydration, then, is not a case of running out of water, but rather a case of not having enough of it. Likewise, when it comes to worldwide oil production, we do not have to lose all of the oil before our society collapses. But, and coincidentally, we need only lose the same 10% as the man dying from dehydration. Our industrial civilization will not come to a catastrophic end because we ran out of oil, but rather because we did not have enough of it. Indeed, and as mentioned in a previous YouTube video, we do not have to speculate as to what even a very small shortfall in the supply of oil might do to our economy, for we have a precedent from which to draw guidance. For in 1973, OPEC curtailed all supplies to the West in protest at their support for Israel in the Yom Kippur War. This caused a shortfall in the supply of oil of just 5%. But this small shortfall had a truly devastating effect upon the UK economy, where industry was forced to work for just 3 days per week. Basic foodstuffs such as bread and potatoes disappeared from the shelves, and indeed we saw how the whole of the UK economy was forced to slow down almost to a standstill. Fortunately, the oil shock, as it became known, lasted only some 3 months. Had it continued, however, the economy would have crashed out, leaving the country bankrupt. And all of this came about not because we ran out of oil, but rather because we did not have enough of it. That such a small shortfall can have such devastating effects upon the economy seems at first glance to be out of all proportion. But such is the nature of the beast. A small shortfall leads to huge and catastrophic consequences. Whenever I mention the coming inevitable energy crisis and its dire consequences, I invariably receive one of two responses, with the first one being, it will not happen in my lifetime. However, and even allowing for the current fall in demand, oil is still being pumped out of the ground, and so the shortfall looms ever nearer. Moreover, and perhaps more importantly, many of the countries producing oil are far from stable. Countries in the Middle East, for example, have been fighting each other since biblical times. and there is no sign of peace breaking out anytime soon. This being so, then a concerted drone attack on Saudi Arabia by Yemeni forces, for example, could bring about an oil supply shortage today. To be clear, the coming energy crisis is not something that may happen in the far distant future, but something that could happen at any time. The second response I hear is that even if the oil does indeed run out or even short, then we will simply go back in time, as it were, and revert to traditional farming methods. Before the beginning of the Industrial Revolution, which for convenience I put as 1750, the population of England stood at some 4.5 million people. And this figure would appear to be the maximum number of people the land area of England can support using traditional farming methods. The population of England today, however, and again for convenience, I will put at 54.5 million people, some 50 million people more than the land area of England can realistically feed, meaning that to go back in time and to maintain our present day society is simply not possible. In conclusion, to be clear, gentle observer, we all of us live in truly utopian times, for at no other time in the history of mankind has our kind of society ever existed before, and nor will it ever exist again. Indeed, many of the things we take so much for granted today were an impossible dream for past generations, and they will sound fanciful and unbelievable in times to come. Indeed, our time may well be looked upon as a time of myth and magic, where people were able to fly like birds and travel across the land at great speed. Many may not believe such things were ever possible and dismiss our time as nothing more than stories for children. The past 200 years has just been a freak of nature, a one-off, an illusion created by oil, and an illusion the coming energy crisis will dispel forever by the imposition of a brutal reality. Whilst society has had its ups and downs over the past 200 years, people have nonetheless grown up believing that things can only get better, and that tomorrow will be better than today. And for the past 200 years, and with the help of oil, they have. It has all been jelly and cakes, fizzy drinks and party poppers. But I am very much afraid that with the coming end to the age of oil, the party is now well and truly over. I am an old man and I have had a full life, and I am now resigned to accept whatever fate has in store for me. However, when I now see children at play and I hear their laughter, and then think of what their future may hold, my heart is filled with a terrible foreboding. I am RDF and I thank you for watching my humble video, and I do so hope you will subscribe and press the notification